Hi, Sean Keenan with the Legends Realty Group with some do's, don'ts, and suggestions when you're buying a home. So number one, do hire a good real estate agent. A good real estate agent can save you thousands of dollars. I know this sounds self-serving. Obviously, I'd love to help you if you're buying in the North Metro Atlanta area, specifically Gwinnett County, and even more so Beaufort. That said, an agent is free to you. Why wouldn't you want to use them? Do you need one for new construction? Yes, you do. I have several stories. So you can go to new construction lots on your own. You don't have to tote your agent around with you, but you need to already have that agreement in place with your agent, and you need to register with that agent as your agent the very first time you go to that community. So I have several clients that like to go do it themselves, and that's totally fine. A couple of examples just in the last year that I've had with clients that are happy they had an agent on their side. New construction on-site agents, they're great, but they are working for the construction company. Their goal is to sell off the lots as fast as possible. If you don't get picky, they're going to sell you whatever lot you'll say yes to. So I had several clients too in the last year where they went in and they thought, okay, I found it. I like the house. I like the neighborhood. We picked it out. We just need to go write up the contract. And of course I showed up to say, okay, let's go do the contract. That said, we're going through the contract and we're looking at the map of the layout of the whole neighborhood and the lot that they were picking. And we actually went out and walked the lots. So do walk your lot, and found that the one that they thought was going to be great and a decent size, the back patio or the back line of their slab for their home was only about 8 feet from a slope that dropped off quite a bit. The lot's great, but it's all downhill slope and unusable space. So we ended up finding them one of the premium lots in the neighborhood that was still available and had a minimal upcharge for that cost of that lot. But they were able to get one of the best lots in the neighborhood with all flat, open, and will be one of the best values on resale in the future. Another scenario was the same concept. We had them go in, they looked at it, and they said, okay, we like this lot, it'll be okay. We don't want these ones up here. So I said, wait, let's go actually walk those real fast. And sure enough, they were able to get almost double the lot size and less neighbors by choosing a different lot that actually saved them money. And they're very happy with that. And we'll be closing on that one this next month. So another reason you need an agent on your side. These are just stories. There's always reasons to have an agent. However, about a year ago, I had another client with a new construction build, and of course, I'm not going to name the company. However, about 7 months into the contract, because it was about 9 months build out time, they finally started moving on her loan and said, okay, we need to verify that you can buy this house. Obviously, they pre-approve you a little bit at the beginning, but they get more in depth as you get towards the end. So we already had a full approval from another lender, but sometimes it's actually good to go with the on-site lender or the builder's loan company because a few reasons. One, they actually will sometimes give you more incentives, like more cash towards your closing costs, so it will save you money. Two, there's a clause in the contract when you're buying a house that states that if you are late on closing for your fault, not the builder's fault, but your fault, and usually that's because of a loan issue, you will pay them a per diem, and it's usually at least $100 a day for every day that you're late. If you are using their lender and their lender can't close on time, I have never seen a company charge that per diem because it's their lender they're telling you to use. So they will actually usually waive that fee. I've never seen them charge it to any of the clients I've had. On top of that, again, they usually work better together because it's the on-site agent and that lender, and they know each other. They work multiple transactions together at a time, so it can be a smoother process. That said, shop around, see what other lenders you can work with that you like, and maybe they're willing to match some of the benefits. And if you use some of the lenders that we work with, I've never had them miss a closing, so it can be that way. But anyway, so in this scenario, we had already had a pre-approval for another lender that said, hey, she's good to go. Yeah, she's got some questionable credit issues, but we got her covered. That said, we said we're still going to try out your built-in lender to see if she can get a better deal. Well, she got turned down by them. And the on-site agent didn't communicate well with her boss. and the boss terminated her contract and said she can't afford the house. And then they said, well, we'll sell it back to you if you want to pay another $10,000 more because the market's gone up, but we already canceled your contract. And she called me in a panic saying, Sean, what in the world? I can't believe they did this to me. They're basically telling me they will sell me the house, but I have to pay them $10,000 more than what we originally signed the contract for. And so I called the agent and I said, hey, what in the world are you doing? And she said, well, it's not me. I totally think it's wrong too. But my boss said that she can't afford the house and she canceled it. But she said she'll put it back together if she can figure out her finances, but it's going to be about 10 grand more. And I said, that's not acceptable. I need to talk to your boss. And she said, well, she won't let me give you her cell phone number. I said, okay. Hung up the phone, got on the phone, and hunted down her boss's boss through corporate and got someone to accidentally give me his cell phone number. So I call up the boss's boss and say, hey, we need to talk about this property at this location. Of course, this guy has no idea what I'm talking about, and he's a busy man and wanted nothing to do with dealing with this. However, he said, I don't handle that kind of stuff. You need to talk to that agent or the boss. I said, okay, but she won't talk to me. I can't get her cell phone. He said, do you have a pen and paper? I said, absolutely. He gave me her cell phone number, and he said, tell her that I said to work it out. So I called her, left her a voicemail, and said, hey, I just spoke to so-and-so. He said to call you directly and to work this out and put it back together. She got on the phone back to me in about 15 minutes or less, and we put that contract back together, all original terms, got her closed. She closed on time, and everyone's happy. If she didn't have her own agent representing her, she could have been just totally screwed on that, and she was done. So have an agent even for new construction. All right, so number 2, do get set up on an instant or at least an auto notification system from the MLS from your agent. Another good reason to have an agent. If you go on Zillow, Realtor, and some of those other websites, they can be up to 24 to 48 hours behind. And then you find yourself always getting frustrated because you're missing out on homes because as soon as you call in to say, can I see it? And the agent goes, oh, it's already under contract. Or we have multiple offers and we're not taking any more, or something along those lines. A good agent knows how to use their MLS and actually have you automatically, we can do 2 different options. We can say, okay, every day at 6 a.m., pull this list or check if there's anything new that matches my client's criteria. And if so, send them a list of everything that matches that criteria in the last day. If nothing changed and nothing matches, you're not going to get blown up with spam emails. You're just not going to get an email. If you're being very aggressive and you want to get even faster notifications than just 6 a.m. the next morning, there's also an instant notification. And literally it's exactly that. As soon as a new listing goes in the MLS, you will get an email from your agent saying, hey, this listing just came on the market and let's, obviously give you the chance to go see it. That said, don't be too frustrated with your agent if you've done those steps and yet you still find out it's under contract that quickly. Sometimes agents will promote it to their office first, try and get somebody else in their office to buy it, or an agent representing somebody else in the office to buy it, because it's easier to work with people you know. It looks great as a listing agent if you can say, hey, I sold it before it even went on the market. And again, if with some of our offices, it actually saves us fees on the MLS if we sell with another agent within our office. So the office we work at is about 300 agents, so we try and keep on top of those scenarios as well. However, get set up on that notification. Don't just look at Zillow and Realtor. All right, do get a home inspection and every other inspection that you will feel comfortable getting. You obviously don't need to overdo it. However, you do need to know what you're buying. It's like buying a used car, especially if it is a used house. You need to take it to the mechanic, make sure the engine's running right, make sure everything's functioning before you want to buy it, because you don't want to get it home or move in and find out everything's broken. Yes, you should get a new construction home inspection. That said, a lot of people opt out of that. There's good and bad about that. One, if you find something with new construction, even if you didn't get a home inspection, you move in and it's a pain, the builder's going to fix it. So a lot of people say, okay, I'll just deal with that when the time comes, if it comes. But you can also have scenarios where the home inspector will actually find stuff that you wouldn't have known was wrong and could cause a house fire later if something was wired wrong and so forth. So you want to make sure that you still have a home inspection. One of the biggest things I see, especially in new construction around here, is they'll put the shingles on the roof and then have somebody go do gutter work or do something else. And they literally bolt the ladder through the brand new roof shingles and go up, and that way it's secure and they can go up and down and do whatever they're doing with rain gutters or whatever it is. And then they just put tar in those holes. Most of the time, you're going to find that with a home inspection from a home inspector. You might not know about that unless you go up on your roof yourself, which I wouldn't always recommend, to check that out. So we've had the ability to tell the builder, hey, you need to replace those tiles or those shingles in that whole section, not just tar. That ruins the whole point of the warranty of that roof. So just an example right there of why you want that inspection. That said, also you want to get a septic inspection if you have a septic system in your home. In Georgia, in our area, probably 30 to 40%, maybe 30% have septic systems. Horror story I can tell you about why you definitely want to have an inspection done. I had a client who was in the plumbing industry. He had a buddy who could do the whole septic thing for him. So he said, oh, I don't need to worry about that. We don't want to ask for that. And I don't want to pay for an inspection. I'll just handle it after we move in. I've got a guy. I said, okay, are you sure? He said, yes. I'll never let anybody do that again. A month later, I talked to them and say, hey, how's everything going? They said, well, about a week after we moved in, everything backed up in the toilets and the sinks and everything like that, and we had to have somebody come out and check the septic. Turns out the previous owner had poured an entire back patio slab over the top of that septic tank. There was a deck on top of that slab. In order to access that septic tank to even check it out and pump it out, they had to take off the back deck and jackhammer up a ton of their concrete in order to access it. Turns out they needed a whole new septic system. It cost them over $8,000. They didn't blame me because I told them to do it, but the last time I'll let somebody just not get an inspection on a septic. That said, there are ways to minimize your chances of having to pay for that kind of thing. So what I like to do is, in an offer, first, here's a little inside tip. I suggest not asking them to pump and have it serviced and all that kind of stuff. I suggest that you say, seller is to provide a clear septic inspection report. That sounds a lot less like work to the seller and a lot of agents that don't know what they're looking at. And so what will happen is the agent will say, okay, that's not too bad. We can get one of those. It's just so much for an inspection fee. Well, a lot of companies, they won't inspect a system without pumping it. So you might get a pump that'll save you about $500. On top of that, if there's a problem, the seller has already agreed to it based on that statement that they will repair those issues without coming back to you and asking you for more money or trying to negotiate with you. They've already agreed to a clear inspection report. A clear inspection report means there's no issues. So again, I've had several times where they've agreed to that. They had to have it pumped. They ended up having to pay for about $1,200 in repairs, saved my clients about $1,800. And we didn't have to even negotiate those items when it came time, because a lot of times they're not going to do that service until later in the contract after your due diligence period. Well, guess what's already happened during that due diligence period or before we get to that point? We've already negotiated all of our other repairs and incentives and discounts or whatever because we had to do that in our due diligence window. So now the seller has nothing to really come back to us with other than, hey, we're stuck on the line for this dollar amount to fix it. So get your inspections. All right, this one's a simple one, but do have all of your inspections done at least 2 days before your due diligence expires. So when you buy a house, you make an offer and you say, okay, we want so many days to basically kick the tires, have the home inspected, make sure we know what we're buying. Usually in a busy market, it could be as low as 6 days or so. Some people waive it all together. I don't recommend that at all. Up to 14 days. Depends on if it's a buyer's or seller market. So you want to give yourself time of at least 48 hours for you to look over the report, because if you have it inspected on Friday, you're probably not going to get a copy back until Monday, or at least that night. If you have it inspected on a Wednesday, you'll get it that night, usually from the home inspection company, or maybe the next morning. So already you need that day. You want to look it over. You want to discuss it with your agent and decide what's important, what's not important, what's a safety concern, what's not. Again, when you're buying a used house, it's like buying a used car. You're not going to ask for a whole new paint job on the car because you're expecting a couple little minor scratches and dings. However, if you find out the transmission's broken, you're going to expect that to be fixed before you're willing to buy the car. So you need to discuss with your agent, what items are we going to fix or ask them to fix, and then submit that over to the other side. You got to give them time to read it and get back to you, and we have to have time for negotiation. Usually 2 days is plenty. If you get up to that end of that 2 days and you're getting nervous, work it out with them. Hey, we need more time. We're not going to send anything else your way, but we need to extend this due diligence window specifically to finish negotiating these terms. Always make sure you have your inspections done at least 2 days prior to those expiration dates. Don't go directly to the listing agent thinking you're going to get a better deal. I have a whole other video of why you specifically don't want to go to the listing agent thinks you're going to get a better deal and why you usually won't get a better deal. The gist is, the listing agent has to represent the seller's interests even if you are a nice guy or they're a nice agent. Don't do it. Next one, don't blindly hire an agent. You need to do your homework. If you are under contract with an agent, I can't tell you how many times I get calls from past clients asking me to bail out their friends and help them because they got in bed with the wrong agent. Once you're under that contract, I can't even talk to you about real estate. I can't even tell you if you can get out from that contract, which you can't. However, if you ask nicely, sometimes they'll let you out. If you tell them I'm not going to work with you, you're under that contract if you don't read it correctly for a set number of days in that contract. So it could be 6 months. And if you want to buy a house in the next 6 months, you have to buy it through that agent, unless they send you something in writing that terminates that contract. So don't just hire any agent. Do your homework. Go on Google, do some reviews. Go on YouTube, watch some videos, find people that actually are helping you with some information that actually know the market, know the industry, and you find helpful and can trust. Do not just go to an open house and walk in and say, oh, that person seems nice. At least you can talk to them a little bit. Build some rapport. You feel like you trust them, give them a shot. That's fine. Don't sign the contract of working exclusively with them until you have to. So with us, I will not ask you to get married on the first date. So when you call me, I'm not going to say, hey, I'll help you, but I need you to sign this contract here that says you're only working with me. What I will do is I'm going to go show you some properties. We're going to go through the whole process. And you will not sign that contract with me until we have to write an offer. Because legally for me to write an offer for you, I have to have that contract. That's it. And if an agent is forcing you ahead of time, there are some agents that are like, oh, it's not worth my time to go blindly helping people. That's a lack of belief in their ability to show value to their customer rather than a willingness to trust that they're going to do enough to make the customer feel comfortable working with them. I don't want to trap you into something. First off, the internet, I just told you, go look at all the reviews. I don't want a bunch of bad reviews. If you don't want to work with me, bye. Have a good day. I wish you luck in your journey. I don't need a bunch of negative reviews bringing me down. I haven't had any clients actually ever ask me to get out, thankfully. However, if they did, okay, see you later. And again, I'll tell you that right now. I will not hold you to that contract if you even have to sign it after writing an offer. So we write an offer, you don't get the house, and you feel like you want to go somewhere else or you didn't like the way I handled it. Okay, my bad, sorry. Even if it's not my bad and you just feel that way, I understand your feelings. We'll part ways and move on as friends. Next up, don't blindly waive your appraisal or other contingencies. You have 3 primary contingencies in your contract. Number 1 is going to be your due diligence period. That is your contingency of, hey, I did my inspections and we couldn't come to an agreement on the things that need to be fixed. I want out. Thanks so much. I'll take my earnest money back. You're only out the cost of the inspection, but it was money well spent. The next one is your appraisal. You've gotten past that. You ordered your appraisal, which I highly recommend you do after you've done your due diligence, so that way you're not out the cost of the appraisal and the inspection fee if you can't come to terms on an agreed resolution to any issues found during the inspection. More about that if you want to talk about it. However, the next one is your appraisal. So your appraisal basically says if it doesn't appraise for the contract price, you don't have to buy it. It doesn't mean the whole thing's toast. It means that now you have the freedom to try and work it out with the seller, or if you can't, get your earnest money back. The next one is your finance contingency. Your finance contingency says that It gives your lender a certain window of time, usually the longest period of the contract, to make sure that they can actually get the loan for you. It doesn't mean they're going to get fully approved by that time. It means that they're going to know beyond 99% certainty that they can get that loan for you by the time the sale closes. You do not want to waive these contingencies. One, you don't want to buy something you don't know you're buying. Two, your appraisal contingency, again, if you want to be aggressive and say, hey, my agent says it's a busy market, which right now, as of this recording, it really is a seller's market. You might have to be very aggressive. It doesn't mean you want to just say, I'll pay whatever it is, or I'll pay this price, and if it appraises low, I'll take it. I've had a contract earlier this year that it was listed at $340. My clients were willing to go to $370. They love this house. It was the perfect house. When we said, hey, we'll go $1,000 over the next verifiable highest offer up to $370,000, but our offer price was $345. So again, if somebody came in at $346, we were willing to pay $347. It doesn't put us all the way to the top. Again, an agent that knows how to work that out will make it to where you're not blindly throwing $370,000 when all it would have taken to win was $346,000. So in that scenario, we got under contract at the $346 or $347 price. The appraisal came in at $300,000. We still had the appraisal contingency. That wipes away the fact that we had to pay the $346 and leaves us open to negotiations. If we didn't have that appraisal contingency, my client would have, and again, this house had multiple offers. People were willing to pay more. But if we didn't have that appraisal contingency, they would have been stuck on the hook for $47,000 difference above their down payment, their closing cost fees. That's a lot of money. We were able to work it out in that scenario where, yeah, they came a little bit more money out of pocket, but we got the home for them at $315,000. So they paid $15,000 over the appraised price, but they got it for $30,000 less than they thought they were going to pay for it, and they weren't on the hook for that full gap. We were able to win. They're thrilled. The seller still feels like, hey, it's going to appraise for $350 or $300. At least I got $315. But they could have kept us on the hook or kept the earnest money and said, thanks, we'll just keep your earnest money and we'll find somebody else willing to pay $320 or $315. So do not waive those contingencies. All right, time for some suggestions. Now, again, we just covered this a little bit. Consider using an escalation clause if you're wanting to be very aggressive in a market. The contract price is this. You're willing to pay a certain dollar amount increments above the next best offer up to a certain dollar amount. That will give you an aggressive stance without obligating you to the maximum amount. The next one is ask for money instead of repairs. That's my personal preference, and it depends on the repair. So this is why it's a suggestion and not a do or a don't. I suggest you ask for credit from the seller in lieu of a repair in most scenarios. So for example, in Georgia, we have a very humid and tropical environment. Well, with rain and all that, wood on the exterior houses always ends up rotting away over time. So you will have wood rot on almost every home inspection you find. However, when you tell the seller, hey, I want you to fix the wood rot on the house, the seller can say, okay, I'll do that. They're going to go find the guy who's going to do it as cheap as possible, which might mean you've got a full board of trim, but only the bottom 6 inches is rotted. So that person they hire is only going to cut 8 inches off and patch in a little 8-inch piece and try and smooth the line, but you can see it. That's fixed. The contract said they had to fix it. You probably want to go and hire the right person to pull off the entire board, put a brand new board, and actually fix it to your liking. Fixed is relative. It doesn't mean, and again, you can get very specific if you want to, if you insist on having the seller fix that, but you will likely have more butting heads with the seller because the seller is going to think that you are being so nitpicky, even though you're just covering your own bases. If you say, okay, we know, again, this is why you want to have time after your inspections, have somebody give you a quote and say, how much would you charge me to do all this? And then go to the seller and say, hey, I'd like you to give me $1,200 towards closing cost credits. And the way closing cost credits works is that's money that put towards the money you owe at closing. They can't pay your down payment, but they can pay money towards all your closing cost fees. So you will save that $1,200 of cash out of pocket at closing. Obviously, if you reduce the price of the sale of the house by $1,200, that's great, but you still aren't having money in your pocket to pay for that repair. So you want the closing cost credits instead of discounted off the house. That way, you've now got that same $1,200 still in your bank account. You can hire the right person to do the right job at the end after closing. All right, guys, that about sums it up. Make sure you find an agent. If you finally have listened and said, I'm going to find an agent, hire one that will help me. Make sure you find one that isn't just going to find a house for you and sell you a house. Make sure you have an agent that's actually going to help guide you through the home buying process. The value of what we provide and our expertise is not access to what homes are for sale. That information's on the internet everywhere. You don't need us for that. Yes, you need us if you want to get faster notifications of what's on the internet or what's for sale. But the real value in a good real estate agent is helping you actually win the bid for the house that you want in a very aggressive seller's market and protect you and your money and your interests throughout the entire contract. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Click the notifications button just so you get notified of any new videos that come out. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you're ready to get started, please feel free to reach out. You've been seeing my name and number and my email address the whole time during this video. We'll see you again soon.